thing you will all know about is the next question, because there were more people asked this than any other question. Why have you closed Lendal Bridge? What are you doing with the money? Why have you got holes in the road, and why are you not sweeping my streets when you were... One person said that they were fined 5 times in a single day. So, what are you doing about that?
Sure. Okay. Well, local government is in a very difficult financial situation in general. When you look at cuts to government departments, they've had cuts around 7%-ish, and don't quote me on that figure, but it's relatively low over the course of this Parliament. And councils have taken a far, far greater brunt of that, because there is a perception among some people in Westminster, and amongst probably a large section of the population that thinks that we're all wasteful organisations, wasting money.
So it's a revenue exercise and not a traffic management?
No. Let me explain the financial club, because I don't often get these opportunities to explain how the finances work, because a lot of people believe that their council tax pays for all the services that they get, and therefore they say, why are my council tax going up when the services are going down? They don't understand that actually that only contributes to 60% of our expenditure, and the rest comes from government, literally through taxation, but not through taxation that we control. And it's that that's being cut 45%. And when you actually then have reductions in funding of that scale, mixed with increased demand for things like adult social care, the actual cuts that we're doing ends up being higher than 45%. So over the course of this Parliament, the cuts that we are initiating in York is about half our
I think the question was about Lendal Bridge, not about Conservative policies. So
no, but what you did ask is why aren't the streets clean, why aren't my potholes, and that is why, it's because of some of that funding.
The question was about
Lendal Bridge. This was discussed initially by the County Council in 1974 as a potential opportunity to be able to look at trying to reduce traffic in the city centre. Clearly didn't go ahead at that time. About 10 years ago-ish, the council was discussing it again, decided not to go through with it, but I and my colleagues had a manifesto pledge to be taking physical action over congestion without introducing a congestion charge. Something had to give. Now I know that it's controversial, but so was pedestrianisation. We had people carrying coffins through the city centre at that time saying that it was going to kill the city centre, and that isn't what happened. In fact, you ended up having a more welcoming environment, more people went into it. So what we did is we said, shall we look at a trial that lasts 6 months to be able to restrict private traffic going through here, and what mechanism could be used to enforce that? And also, some people say to me, why didn't you close Ousbridge instead? But actually a high proportion of traffic going through Ousbridge goes to the city centre as the destination.
How much does it raise?
It would have had, I think, I don't know off the top of my head, I think it's been about, well it depends because Coppergate's come in at the same time in terms of enforcement. So I think it's been about £60,000–70,000 a week on average, but don't quote me on the figure, and that's between the two. And Ousbridge would have had a greater impact on city centre businesses than the Lendal Bridge would have done. Now I was expecting far more traffic chaos than has actually been created. There's been an increase in traffic on Foss Islands Road, there's been an increase in traffic along Clifton Bridge, but actually there's been a reduction on Lima Road, a reduction on Lord Mayor's Walk, and a reduction on Bootham and Gilligate, which is not what I expected. It allows taxis to be able to get through, and obviously public transport to get through. Because we don't control the buses, we don't licence them, and we don't regulate them. We haven't done since the 80s. The only thing we can help influence getting people onto buses is actually being able to make sure they're reliable. And if they're snarled up in traffic, and that's why you have bus lanes, then they're not reliable and people won't get on.
Okay, Claire?
I think it's an embarrassment for York because the bad publicity that's been generated over it, and I can't see any real advantage because my shop looks out over Lendal Bridge and I squirm daily by seeing people driving down who genuinely don't see that sign at the end of Lendal that says don't turn left, because they've turned left for so long and they go over it, and I just think that's another visitor or another tradesperson or another delivery guy who's gone over Lendal Bridge, and I think if we're going to do it, it should have been so much more clearly done. When I lived in London during when they introduced the congestion charge, and you couldn't miss it. You know, you drove down the road, there was a sign the size of a house, and it stopped you going into the congestion zone. We haven't got it right. I think the revenue must. I think the revenue must be so much more, because I can count. I sit on my phone looking out sometimes. 4 or 5 cars per minute going over Lendal Bridge. And it hasn't made much difference because it's become like a fast track for taxis piling over the bridge. We've got the buses coming over the bridge, we've got the Royal Mail coming over the bridge, we've got the dust vans. And I think if you said to most visitors to York, do you think this bridge is quiet? They wouldn't have noticed any difference. I genuinely, if we're going to do it, I think be bold, close the bridge, do something really radical and make it, a completely pedestrian zone. Then I think that would have had some value. But I think we've got a half-hearted attempt at managing traffic over one small bit of road that's just sending traffic all over the place. I mean, we got married in York 2 weeks ago, and we had friends who are not stupid people who didn't know what to do when they got to the top of when they coming from the north, sorry, the south. They just looked at it and then they just sort of dashed off in all various directions. They were staying in hotels in the centre of York, couldn't get to them. My brother spent 25 minutes being talked in by one of the hotels and in the centre of York, because that's the way he'd come in, and he couldn't get to the hotel. It does us no favours. I think we should be bold and say, we'll close it, pedestrianise it like we've done Coney Street and all the others, or we keep it for everybody. But I think the arbitrariness of taxis bombing down there now, they're absolutely, I think every taxi in York takes a shortcut over Lendal Bridge now, so you've got all this traffic. I mean, it doesn't seem any quieter to me at all.
I think it is.
Sorry, Keith, half-baked or a sensible experiment or half-baked and fully implemented?
I think James attempting to link the closure of Lendal Bridge to government cuts at the start was a little bit extreme.
I was asking whether why there haven't been clean streets.
Yeah, I'm aware. You're very good at deflecting things, but my main problem with the way that the closure of Lendal Bridge was handled was that the Labour Party had absolutely no mandate to do it. It wasn't in a manifesto, and more importantly, it was not consulted on, and the local businesses were not consulted, the community was not consulted widely, people were not given adequate time and information to be able to deal with a closure that we have now seen sort of day in, day out in the press.
We wrote to
Absolutely.
every single person in the city. It's been on TV.
If you remember, James, on the morning of the closure, we were on Radio York,
There's 33
and I said
signs around the
exactly the
city.
same point that presumably you ignored, that there needed to be more consultation, more information, more adequate signage. You haven't done any of it, and the trouble is that we are now seeing the consequences of people being fined when visiting York. I have many people, I assume the other group leaders do, who are contacting us from outside of the city saying our holidays, our visits have been absolutely ruined due to this policy. And if it is going to remain in place as it is, then the council needs to sort out the signage, needs to sort out the information, and needs to deal with the complaints that we are seeing, because it is that significant an issue in terms of the reputation of York, and we need to grapple with that.
And I could feel you nodding when James was speaking, so I suspect your answer's fairly short and great idea, more of it.
The longest running scrutiny there's ever been in this city spent 4 years looking at how to tackle congestion. The conclusion it came up with was that people wanted something radical doing short of congestion charging. This is exactly what this is. It's policy which has been developed both under a Liberal Democrat administration and a Labour administration. We've got serious air quality issues in this city. We've got streets where people are living, where they're living in an environment which breaches World Health Organization conditions. And up until this action, there's nothing seriously done to try and address that. This at least is a step in that direction to try and address the issue about air quality. A signage may be right, it may not be exactly the right format.
But the signage you're saying is incompetence rather than mischief.
Is the DFT has regulations. I mean, I'd love to put the signs up that there's congestion charge. That's specific.
I think you have
not
to.
allowed to do it.
I think you have to.
signs.
You have to balance the conservation issues. You don't want to degrade 10-foot high sign up against the city wall,
Flashing lights on the minister.
and so on. So there is a balance to be made, and there are regulations, as James said, that have to be complied with, and inevitably there will be teething problems and so on. But I think if you go back to looking at the Alan Simpson's report, The City Beautiful, that was a model a vision for the city which involved less traffic in the city centre. 40% of traffic through the city centre is not actually got any business there, it's going passing through from A to B.
I thought that plan was pedestrianised that Lendal Bridge, not partly close it, wasn't it?
It may well have been, yes. But then we have got the limited number of bridges. We can't afford to be building bridges everywhere. You've got a bus network which is focused on the city centre. So you have to do something to maintain the public transport routes that provide the alternative for the cars and the people who don't want to be bringing their cars in when they don't need to.
Yeah, you had an interest in taxis, so...
I did have an interest in taxis, and as I said to James when this was first muted, it was done in the early 2000s, I can't remember exactly what, and the traffic disappeared, and there's no doubt about it. You know, Bootham, Gillygate, Lord Mayor's Walk, round by the station, history would tell us that the traffic disappears. Where it goes to, and there was a couple of pinch points, I think one was Crichton Avenue Bridge and one was Walgate Bar, I believe. And you know, I have a certain amount of sympathy with what the Labour group have done in this, because there is no doubt that Lendal Bridge was stacked up with traffic all the time. Now, if the policy is to get rid of that traffic, then Lendal Bridge undoubtedly has worked. You know, there's no two ways about it, because the traffic has disappeared. If the policy is also to get rid of the people that were in those cars, then that's working as well. And I don't know what the impact of that is as yet, and it's too early to tell. What I would say about Lendal Bridge is a 6-month experimental period. Now, people have said about the signs, and the signage is absolutely appalling. We've done it half-cocked, we've not done it right. We've talked, you know, people talk about sat-navs. I mean, if they never got a map these days, what would we do without sat-navs? But at the end of the day, that's the world in which we live. But they rushed it through, and the signage is poor, I've got to say. But, you know, I have some certain amounts of sympathy with, you know, you're damned in the city if you do, and you're damned if you don't. And if you go across Lendal Bridge in a car, you know, you could either go up Bootham or up Gillygate. That's the only two ways you can go, unless you're a disabled driver and went into the city. So why people were going across there in the first place could be argued. However, getting back to what I was saying, the 6 months, it should be 6 months, and it should be 6 months and not a day more. And the data should be collected from that, and then a more substantial reasoning discussion should take place as to what happens, you know, going on from there. People say about closing Ousbridge. Why would you want to close Ousbridge? I mean, people, the reason they go across Ousbridge, people get dropped off, to be honest with you. James is right, people go into the city centre. But in real terms, if you're going from west to east, you can't go down Coppergate, you know, because that's against the law. So you would go down to where Scourgate Bridge comes across the river anyway. So why you need to go over Ousbridge in the first place, I don't know. So that's where I would go. 6 months, not a bit more. It's worth, you know, I won't criticise them for trying, but I think there's a lot of data to come. You know, they certainly got rid of the cars. Whether it's done any damage to city centre trade or not, too early to tell. That's one part of the question. The second part of the question is in potholes and gritting and what have you. You know, we've just given over £500,000 for a transformation programme to directors that get 6-figure sums. We've got details of arts barges, 20-mile-an-hour signs that nobody wants, and we can't find £60,000 to grit the roads. I think that shows you where we are with this lot.
Gary.
As a mere resident and commuter along Hackney Road and Gillygate over the bridge into town, travelling between 7:30 and 9:30 every day, bike or bus, it is a lot better. It's a lot better than it used to be. So it has a positive impact on my start to every day. So that's a completely partisan view, but for me, it works.
Okay. Unwittingly, Ian gave a brilliant introduction to the question from the audience, which is...
Well, I changed the question.
Oh,
I was going to
He was going to work so well as well.
I've answered it.
I was going to ask about the expenditure of £500,000 on additional management to backfill failed management that we have at the council at the moment. But I think, to be fair to the audience and to the panel, I would rather ask about parish councils in the city. Because at the moment we have parish councils all around the city, and in the city we don't have them. And what that means is that every time there's any kind of consultation or any idea about localising services, the residents' associations, which are basically small groups around particular communities in the city are approached as if they are parish councils. So there's no democratic accountability, and to me it seems for 15 quid a year we could easily have parish level governance within the city walls as well as outside.
Okay. Third tier, local authorities in the city centre. Keith, you
Yeah,
have a view on that.
Speaking as a Liberal Democrat, but also as a vice chair of a parish council, I'm a huge fan of what they can do, because I think people underestimate the amount of voluntary effort that parish councillors, the parish council staff and people that link into parish councils can do. They can provide a sort of level of community effort and also be a focal point for the community. City of York Council as a sort of party political entity is never going to achieve the sort of level of goodwill and support that parish councils working right in communities can do. I think all communities should be given a choice as to whether they want a parish council, and personally I would like to see the number of parish councils increasing in York, because at the moment you've got parish councils pretty much in the York Outer parliamentary constituency, except Dringhouses and Woodfall. And then you haven't got parish councils in the centre of York, and I'd like those communities to consider it. One of the problems it comes down to is when you ask people, do you want to spend an extra £15 or £30 a year, then obviously they question what they get from it, so that you'd have to make the case for what the parish councils would actually deliver in terms of additional services and resources. But in Fulford, the City of York Council, and Ian just mentioned this at the moment, are cutting services like litter bins, like salt bins, like community grants, like support for in-bloom groups. They're the things that actually most motivate the community to get involved and work together. And if it wasn't for the parish council, we would be seriously struggling to keep doing those basic street level services. So they are really important.
A very quick point. We used to have a system akin to parish councils until 2 years ago when we made budget cuts to the ward committees. The ward committee system was, although there wasn't a precept, but there was still a process whereby local people, and in fact York was acclaimed nationally for good practice, which is now gone because of the cut to the budget, where we used to have an invitation to every resident to deliver through every letterbox to put forward things they'd like to see happen in their ward, and then a ballot of every household to say what they wanted to see happen, and then we actually put that in practice.
So a second fan. Gareth, Ian, you presumably are a fan, are you?
Yes, I am. I mean, I think a lot of people put a lot of work into parish councils. I think there's something wrong when sometimes the precept that's gathered by parish councils, half of it invariably goes to the clerk, and I'm not sure, I would support that. But having said that, I think the parish councils, they do the litter picks, they do all sorts of things, but this authority has never, ever recognised the work that parish councils do. And I think what is really wrong is that they expect parish councils to raise a precept for doing work in the parishes that people in York get for nothing. And I go to the young people, Cottonthorpe Poppleton Youth Club is funded through parish councils, and other grants, whereas the youth clubs in the city centre, they get funded centrally from the city council. And that's wrong. So I do believe that once parish councils can raise their own precept, then there's advantages to that. But we put a motion to council last week where we could actually raise, it's called rewiring public services, that all groups on local government association suggested that taxes could be gathered locally and spent locally. Unfortunately, that was hijacked by others, but leave that to one side. But I do believe there is merit in looking at the parish council side, because they can raise their own precept. And don't forget, all parish councillors are elected.
Gary, are you a fan too?
Yeah, well, I'm a fan of local, so I have to be a fan of parish, or I prefer to see them sort of community council, I suppose, rather than that kind of overtly sort of Church of England label. So yes, the apoliticalness, yeah, I'd actually quite like to see that transfer up as well, because I think the party politics actually gets in the way of most of these guys. The original reason most of them got involved is because they actually care. It isn't really I would say that people's participation within residents groups and other types of community groups is a form of democracy. It's a participative democracy. It's where people actually get up and do something instead of just voting for someone else who they can then blame for the thing that they didn't like. So I think there's a role for both. I'd like to see in each area a community council working very closely with residents groups and other community groups locally.
There we are. James, you've got an obvious vote winner. All the other political parties very keen on it. There must be something that's on your agenda.
Parish councils do a huge amount of work in the city, and they need to be recognised for that. They do it, you know, out of goodwill and because they care about their communities. This government, to be fair to them, I'm never a fan, have actually made it easier for people to set up parish councils, and if people want to set them up and campaign for them, they should be entitled to do. However, it does come back to the question that Keith says about paying additional council tax for that, and what benefit is there in that additional representation. Where I have some slight issues is with regards to something that Gary's raised, with regards to democratic accountability. Because I don't know when the most recent parish council elections were, but the one I looked into quite vigorously, I think about 2 years ago, actually showed that despite the number of parish councils and having most parish councillors around the city, only 2 parish councils actually had a contested election. And therefore, what we're talking about is putting £600,000 taxpayers' money in the hands of some people that haven't fought a contested election. And therefore, I do worry about the democratic accountability around that. But that may be more about saying what the benefits of parish councils are to ensure more people stand for that.
If you haven't got one, it's even more incentive to stand.
We had a question about food banks. Great things. Too many demands and council not putting sufficient resource into them. Do you agree, Gary?
Food banks. Great things if people are hungry. Terrible things because we should never need them in the first place. And I'm not sure I can say a whole lot more than that at the moment. We clearly need them right now where we stand, but let's please not get into a position where they become a permanent fixture of the city because they just shouldn't be. There shouldn't be a need for them.
Anybody else have any of that?
There shouldn't be food banks in the city. This is a wealthy city, you know, and I'm proud that the unemployment rate is going down so much, but that hides in work poverty. You know, the number of people going into part-time work is doing full-time. The real incomes are going down. The energy costs and their house prices in terms of mortgages and rents are going up. And people are relying on food banks. And it's just criminal. It shouldn't be happening. And I worry that it ends up becoming a staple of a welfare society like it is in America. And it shouldn't be. And therefore addressing those wage levels, addressing those types of jobs is important. We're very supportive of the food banks. We've helped work with them to allocate storage for them, because I know there's a couple of them now. And when they did their first kind of picket in Acomb, I got on the bus immediately, went down and bought some stuff for them. They do great work in this city. They're not just giving it to people who, you know, are drinking and smoking and spending their money inappropriately. They're giving it to people who are really, really struggling.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm going to ask you a last question, which has 2 parts to it. Both parts carry equal marks. And can be
Get a
answered,
scorecard, yeah.
and can be answered more or less in a single word for each. Should Richard III be brought back to York, and if so, where should he be buried? If anybody says a car park on Nursery Lane. Okay. Well,
I have to say I don't have particularly strong views on it, but it sort of feels like that it comes back, but I really don't feel very strongly one way or the other.
Andy.
Well, we bring people back who fought in Afghanistan and other places, and I don't see why he shouldn't be brought back here if that's the wishes of his family, to be honest.
Brilliant.
But buried in Mister, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Where does somebody go from being a dead and loved relative? How old do they have to be before they then become a sort of something to do with heritage and tourism instead? I'm not quite sure what the age is, but I would broadly go with Andy that if some genuine family can actually be traced, they would say.
We're going to ask this to Ian, but I'm worried about following up the phrase an old and loved relative, so there's no...
Yes, he should be brought back to York. He's a son of York and should be buried. I would would say the most appropriate place is the Minster. I'll just leave it at that.
James?
Yes, it should. The family have been found, and it's their wishes also that he's buried and interred in York. I would normally say the Minster, but the Dean of the Minster has expressed a view that doesn't really want to get involved in that battle as such.
She's from Leicester.
And therefore, you know, staying out. So it's now, there's a question over whether the Minster is still the best appropriate place. But I think it should be definitely in York.
Keith?
It's nice to end on a question that we all agree on. Yes, I agree, and I do think the Minster is the most appropriate place.
Well, I've changed my mind now. It's only joking.
I actually think you agree quite a lot on the first question from where I sat, although the local politicians don't always get it right. I think one of the things that is great on these occasions is to say thank you to the people who do put effort into trying to make York a great place, whether it's through political office, whether it's through voluntary work, whether it's through representing and promoting the interests of the business community, whether it's students who are interested in the next generation and putting their efforts behind what's going on in this place. And one of the biggest challenges we all have, I think, is getting people involved, engaged. They won't always agree, but to actually put that effort into investing time in their communities, I think is something. And I think all of the panelists here say thank you to them for what they do in their various guises. Occasionally disagree slightly, but what they do in those various guises. And it's a pretty thankless task, as I say. It's about local democracy week, and there are a few jobs in life where your fate depends on other people as much as your own efforts, I think, and you'll never make everybody